Okay.
Thank you. Fantastic. Yes, it is rather, it's rather chilly in here, isn't it? Yes. It's possible everyone to stay awake. You've got slides as well?
Yes, they're on a slightly separate
Oh, okay.
system.
Right. Do you know how to navigate to it? Or is it just okay, lovely. All right. Okay, perfect timing there too. Fantastic. So the next person to speak is Gemma Ware, who's going to speak about the conversation. And I'm a published conversation author, so yes, I'm quite quite familiar. So it's a fantastic service. So here we go.
Great. Okay. Is that okay? Oh, no. Let's try the other way. Is that okay? Can you hear me okay in the recording? Yep, okay. Thanks very much for having me along today. My name is Gemma Ware. I'm the Society Editor at The Conversation. So has anyone else here written for The Conversation? Just so I know if anybody has. Okay, great. So hopefully by the end of my session you might be interested to do so or think about pitching an article for us in the future. So just a bit about myself. I'm a journalist. I've been working with The Conversation for 3 years. Before that, I worked for a magazine called The Africa Report, so my background is in African journalism. But at The Conversation, I cover society, which is probably the world's broadest word. So I do everything from migration to kind of British policy on society issues, but also foreign society issues, be that LGBT rights or law or Brexit, which everybody is interested in at the moment. So that is working. So just for those of you who don't know what The Conversation is, we are a website which is free to access. We look like a news website. We look like any other news website that you might get your daily news from, but our kind of USP is that all of our articles are written by academics with a current university affiliation. So the foundation for the site is basically that we want the people who know the most about a subject to be writing about that for the general public. So this is just what was on the site yesterday morning when I took a snapshot of it. So you can see that this is perhaps not. You can see that we've got a piece about Brexit there before, but from a few days ago. But we've also, got new research, kind of new angles on existing research and on the news agenda. So this is what an article looks like. This is actually an article that I worked on about 10 days ago by an academic here at Cambridge. So it can be very. The articles can be very newsy, or they can actually be quite reflective. But the goal is very much that they're aimed at a general audience. So these are not articles that are aimed for your peers. Obviously, your peers may read them, so you want them to be as robust as they can be. But they're very much aimed at a general reader who doesn't know, who's curious about the world and about your subject, but isn't actually an expert in it. So just a bit about where we come from and how we work. So we're funded by the HE sector. So this conversation began in the UK in 2013, and we got some startup funding from some of these research bodies, but our main money comes from universities. So we have about, I think I'm right, it's around 78 or 79 university members. Cambridge is one of them, Oxford as well. And we work very closely with those universities, and I'll go into explain a bit more about that, to try and create a pipeline of interesting articles, but also academics who are keen to comment when we would like them to comment. So there's a kind of a two-pronged approach. So we would like you to contact us with ideas, but we also would like to be able to come to you to ask you to help us if we want to cover a particular issue. I'm sorry, yes, that is true. I should have looked at that, but obviously Cambridge is a member. Really, I couldn't fit all 79 on there, so that's why my colleagues have done that. So yes, we're a team of journalists. So I actually work at the on the roof of City University in London. So City, kind of one of our founding members, so they give us some office space, which is very kind. Most of my colleagues are based in London, but we do now have a growing group of colleagues who are based around the country. So one of my colleagues actually doesn't live too far away from here, but he couldn't make it today. And we have people in Glasgow, in Cardiff, in Bristol, in Manchester, in York. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, but we're basically trying to, as the university sector in the UK does, just try and broaden our geographical expertise as well, so that we know people can go and meet academics. We really like meeting you, understanding what you're interested in, and what you want to write about as well. So one of the key things about why writing for us, and it's very apt, obviously, at the moment with the Open Access Week, why we're a bit different from, say, if you were going to write, if you wanted to write an opinion or comment piece for, say, The Guardian or any other online journal or article, newspaper site, is that we're all Creative Commons licensed. So that works a bit like if you put a photo on Flickr, you can choose the Creative Commons license that you want it to be published under. So that basically means we publish under a Creative Commons BYND, so by no derivatives. So basically that means that any other news website or any other website can republish our content. They must attribute it to you as the author. They must attribute it to us as the first publisher. So it says first published on The Conversation. And they cannot change the content in any way. So they can't change the article. And we're very strict about that. But basically it means that we are a shop window for other websites to come and take content. And I'll go into explain a bit about how that works. So the way we work, we look for short articles. So our articles are around 600 to 800 words. That can sound remarkably short, but it basically means that if you want to write for us, you have to condense your point down to quite a narrow angle, which is obviously how it makes it accessible to a non-academic reader. We're looking for insight, analysis, or comment on stories in the news, explanation and analysis of new academic research that either yourself or perhaps people in your field have been involved in, and discussion of interesting ideas and questions and stories. So that can be everything from a comment on a latest policy document that's been produced by the Home Office, or a new creative economy document, for example, that's been produced, to a piece about some new research that you've done on a particular poet or a particular book or event in history as well. We do quite a lot on anniversaries, trying to find new angles to talk to people about anniversaries of key events. And the key here is 600 to 800 words. Now I will show you an article in a bit which is actually slightly longer than that. So in recent months we've started experimenting with slightly longer form articles. For us, longer form is around 2,000. So that's obviously not quite long form compared to other outlets. But we generally, our general length is around 800 words. That's what we're looking for. So there are kind of, I'd say, 4 main ways that the articles come to us or get published. One is a direct commission, so that would be somewhat, so me just deciding that I really want to get an article from you on this particular issue. So I am the society editor, so my colleagues and I on the politics and society desk will decide what we want to cover in a certain week, and we'll go, okay, we need something on this particular legal angle of Brexit this week. We need to go and find somebody. So we'll email you directly. The other is an expert request. So we work very closely, as I said, with the member universities who we're partnered with, and every morning we have a news conference like any other news organisation, and we put together a list of things that we're looking for that day. So it might be a reaction to a particular piece of research that's come out overnight. It might be planning. Say last week we were looking for people to write about the Chinese Politburo, Chinese Communist Party conference this week. So we can give you a bit of warning, but basically we put a call out and we say we're looking for experts who are willing and able to write about this issue at fairly short notice. Then we also have quite close contacts with the press office, so they might pitch articles to ideas to us, which we're really keen to discuss. It might be that they just say, we've got this person who's interested, could you have a chat with them, discuss an angle, and very much happy to do that. And then the fourth idea, and I'll talk a little bit about that, is that you can also pitch your ideas directly to us, either by email, a bit like Chris was saying earlier, very much, we all our editorial details are on our website. So if you're going to pitch an article to our business or business and economy editor, go and find her name. She's called Annabelle. You could just go and find her email address and pitch directly to her. And the other way is that on our website, it's slightly hidden, but it's on the right-hand side on the homepage. Actually, a button where it says "Pitch your idea." And you can actually fill in a form and directly pitch, and that form gets sent to the relevant editor as well. We very much encourage that. We think it helps you kind of put your ideas in a written format, so you've obviously had to think about it a bit. And we do encourage pitches before an article. We really don't like it if you send us a full 800-word article straight off the bat. Mainly, the reason for that is that it might not be exactly the angle that we're looking for. It might be that we've already got a piece in editing that we're working on, so you would have wasted your time if you've just written something we're already working on and we can't take it from you. And it's better for us if we can kind of agree with you before you start writing what you're actually going to say and how you're going to structure the piece. So the goal is it's a team effort. Our tagline is academic rigour, journalistic flair, however cliched that might be. But the goal is that you bring the expertise and the academic knowledge, and we as journalists are helping you to present that information in an accessible way as possible to a general reader. And we've got our tricks up our sleeve about how we think that's best done on an online, fast-moving online space where you're competing for other people's attention. So headlines are absolutely key, and that means that we can kind of have collaborative and discussions about the best way a headline will work for your piece. But you bring the facts and you bring the argument. So we suggest the good angles and emphasise the interesting bits. So it might be that you've actually put the best, most interesting thing that to me as a general reader, you've put it in your last paragraph. And this is a really common thing that happens. People put the main point in the last paragraph. And we actually we say, well, we need you to restructure your piece, you need to start with that, and then you bring the context in. It's a bit like you approaching it like a news article, whereas perhaps when you're writing a journal article, you would perhaps, academic journal article, you might start more with the context and the academic analysis and your research review and your literature review, and then you'd bring in your results. In a news article or a comment piece, you really need to do it the reverse. You need to bring your point right at the top, otherwise people are going to click away. We want people to read your full article and keep attention, but we also want them to click on it as well. But you are in control. So our system, and I'll show you a bit about it, our system is built so that you can see all the changes that are made and you have final approval of the piece before it's published, which is different from if you were to write, if someone, say, from the FT or the Guardian or the Independent were to commission you to write a piece, they might edit it before publication and you wouldn't actually know what the final headline or stand first or such like would be, and people can, I think, feel a little bit uneasy about that. So we try and avoid that. So here's our online system. It's actually a bespoke system that was developed by our colleagues in Australia. Sorry, I didn't say this at the beginning, but the conversation started in Australia in 2010 or 11, I think. So this is basically, it works a bit like a Google Doc. So if I type something, the academic can also see me typing in real time. So this is a piece by Daphne Marchenko, who's a PhD student here at Cambridge, who researches kind of IQ and the way that people have thought about intelligence and genetics over the last probably 150 years. So this is the piece in editing. So if I were to type something there, she could see it. I can write notes for her in the piece. She can then delete them. She can then add links. As you can see, it's peppered with links. We don't use references like 1, 2, 3, 4 at the end of an article. We put links in we embed them into the text. Obviously, this is the editing system, so it won't look like that at the end. But we very much ask academics to provide evidence, be that a journal article, books. If it's about an ongoing news story, to a reputable news source for a piece of information. So we're very much asking you to provide the facts and the evidence for what you're saying. So it's got a revisioning system where you can actually, it's not track changes as such, but you can scroll back. You see that cursor on the far right there. You can actually scroll back and see all the changes and who made the changes at different points. And so everything's saved automatically. You never lose anything. I sometimes get emails from academics saying, oh no, the whole system, it looks blank, I've lost it. And I said, well, actually, if you scroll back slightly there, you can find it's all there. So nothing's ever lost. And one of the things we're also keen at this stage is disclosure. So we ask 3 key disclosure questions. They're basically related to whether you have any funding. So that's, if you've got ESRC funding or AHRC funding, it's a good place to shout about it. If you've got a if you work for an NGO, as this person, oops, you can't quite see that, but if you work or help with an NGO that's related to the issue of the area that you're working on, we'd ask you just to disclose that. If you are a member of a political party and you're writing about that political party, we'd also ask you to disclose that. But most of the time that doesn't come in. It's only if you're really writing about politics. So yeah, it's very much transparency. This is all aimed at making the authorship of the piece very transparent. And then once the piece is published on The Conversation, we have a team who actively promote it. So, all the usual social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, newsletter. Sorry, our newsletter is perhaps a bit different. So that's a daily newsletter that we run, which I encourage you all to go and sign up for. It's free. If you just go to theconversation.com, and at the top you can sign up to it. So that basically gives you a summary of all the articles that we've published in the last 24 hours. And is a really good way of seeing what your peers, both from Cambridge, but also from other universities, people working in your field, what they're writing about. So we work actively to promote the piece. And in doing so, we also push the article out to partnerships that we have with republishers. So some of these have quite formal partnerships with us. Some of them much less so. They just get used to republishing our content, and they know that they have to abide by our rules. One of the things that we do, someone asked a question earlier about how you know about clicks, how many people PDFs are downloaded. So if a piece of content from our site is republished on say Quartz. I don't know if anyone knows Quartz. It's an American kind of business-focused newsletter. Has a huge readership. So if Quartz republished our content, they'd actually have to embed like a tiny little hidden JPEG image like behind the article, and every time that's downloaded, it sends a little message to our server, and so we can actually count how many times it's read on other people's websites. So we can tell you how many times your article was read on Quartz or on Newsweek or on The Guardian. You might see the Mail online there and look in horror at that. Now, I can, sorry if people do have that reaction sometimes. For us, the Daily Mail or other sites like it, which you might not want to see your content on there, for us, that it's a real coup that if a piece of academic research is published in its totality in a website like the Daily Mail. It is the world's most read newspaper website. And if they publish a piece of content from The Conversation, it gets lots and lots of readers, and they're reading your expert analysis of a situation. So they also have to abide by our rules as well. They can't change what you say. So it's very much a global republishing sphere. So we have LPAs, we have lots of Indian republishers who take us, obviously American sites too. So you can find that your piece gets republished in lots of places, and you get readers and commenters from all those places. So just briefly, what's in it for you or as an academic? So reach new audiences among researchers and media and a wider public. I'd say that's particularly the case for early career researchers who are kind of trying to establish yourself in a field. Can create new opportunities for impact and partnerships and projects that you might want to be working on. Raise your profile. You have control of your profile on the conversation. You can edit it and update it with journal articles that you've published. You can update it with if you change university, you can update it on that. So you have access to it. You own it. So it's very much tied to your department as well. It says it's linked to you at Cambridge. And so hopefully it will also help you improve your communication skills as well. So we really work with you to say, could you change that sentence structure just slightly, and it would help you to explain your point a bit better. We're not doing it to just annoy you. We're really doing it because we think that you could perhaps express yourself in a way that's slightly more accessible. And it should be fun, hopefully. I think people perhaps might find the first edit, they might be a little bit shocked, but then when they go through the process, they realise that it's actually been quite a good learning experience for them for the first time they do it. And these are just some examples of impact that's happened as a result of conversation articles. So republished in The Guardian, cited in OECD reports, people being asked to help with civil service projects, articles cited in the House of Commons, in select committees and in the European Parliament. So this is because actually the articles are short and they are succinct and they are a really easy way to just get to grips with which can be quite a complex topic or idea, and also can lead to other opportunities. So that could ask you to do a TEDx talk, do new research projects, or invite. I think people are invited to do books and to do documentary projects and things like that. So it's just a stepping stone to other things. Your name is attached to this area of expertise, and people can find you and know that you're interested and willing to talk about it to a general audience. Oh yeah, so this is just an example of Daphne's profile. So she has access to this and she can change it whenever she wants. So it's very much, about you as the author. Your editor's name is nowhere to be seen. It's about you. So it's very much about raising your own profile. And then this is a bit that people quite like. The system is built in a way that gives you access to a dashboard, so you can see all of the reads that you've had. So you can see how many articles you've done, where in the world they've been read, how many readers, how many comments. So we are called the conversation, so we do invite comment. Some of those comments can be startling for some people. But we ask you, we find that when academics engage in their own comments, actually the level of comment is much improved. You don't have to engage in comments at all as well. It's very much up to you. You can just put your piece out there and not look at the comments if you don't want to. We know some academics who actually consider all comments as a form of impact almost. They've had people interested in their work. They've actually had people commenting and discussing their ideas. That's an interesting thing to explore in the future. And you can see that this is a piece that's translated as well. So she can see her piece has gone into French. So we have a French website as well. So you can go and look at this. It can be a little bit competitive to look at yours versus your peers, perhaps, and see how many reads you've got. But it's built to show you kind of how many people are reading your piece. And this is just to show you how many people can see the piece worldwide. So IFL Science, I don't know if anyone knows that. It's mainly a Facebook group, publishes a lot of kind of popular science. So they take quite a lot of our content. Quartz, Scroll, that's Indian, The Independent, Arts Technica. These are global websites. just got a couple, just wanted to show you very quickly, sorry, just to say that we haven't got any commercial interests, so we don't carry any advertising, and we don't have any commercial access to Grind, so we would never not turn away your idea because it didn't fit into a particular point of view or a particular political perspective. Very, very briefly, so lots of authors have written lots of articles for us, and we're growing, and we're really keen to get new, young, early career researchers writing for us. We really enjoy working with you guys. And these are just some of our stats. So this is the latest round. So these are how many people visit the site, how many views of the conversation in the month. And this figure here at the bottom is how many people have viewed our content since the Conversation UK was founded. So that includes, as I was saying, that includes how we can tell when it's been seen on other sites. So we think we're doing okay for what is quite a new organisation. We've only been going, a couple of years. And these are just some graphs, but generally the curve is going up. So 1.5 million monthly visitors, and our content in republication is read around 7 to 8 million times a month. And we also publish stuff on Facebook, so we have quite a big push to make our articles kind of work as Facebook videos. That's quite a new developing area for us. I think you may, people look at content and Facebook Lives as well. We're experimenting a bit with that. That will be if your article works in that environment. We will kind of talk with you about how best to promote it on Facebook in a Facebook Live. Very briefly, we also run a podcast which I actually produce with a colleague. So this is a monthly podcast. It's called The Anthill. So please get your phones out and subscribe. It basically we take a theme each month, and we're actually launching one today. It's on the Russian Revolution, actually, for the centenary. But we've done things on memory. We've done things on belief. We've done a podcast on scientists who experiment on themselves and whether that's a good idea or not. So that's another project that we work on. And also, if you haven't got the time to write a piece, but you're interested in a podcast or audio segment, we'd be keen to talk to you about that too. And just finally, so the conversation is part of this global network. So started in Australia, the UK was a second iteration. We now have offices in the US, Africa, France, Canada, Indonesia. I think it's a glowing idea, and the model is taking off around the world. So I have colleagues basically in every time zone. So if something happens, if a breaking news story happens, we usually have covered it for the next when the next editor wakes up in the next time zone. So it's a really exciting place to be working, because it just feels like quite a new model and an interesting environment. So do follow us on Twitter at The Conversation UK. You can also follow all the other conversations at their various hashtags, Twitter handles. And yes, our newsletter is probably the best way to find out what we do. And I would encourage you, if you're going to pitch, I would encourage you to just have a look at the kind of things that we've done on in your field and in the area that you're looking to pitch. We do get a lot of pitches where people basically pitch an article that we've already published. So it's important that you know what we're doing and what we're likely to take. I think I've nearly run out of time. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to. And also happy to talk to anyone who's got ideas or would be interested in writing afterwards as well. Any questions? Yep.
So I have two quick questions. The one is, do you offer any support with translation? And then the other one is, do you have to write it under your own name, or can you write anonymously as you publish?
So the first question on translation, yes, we do. So at the moment, we only have 2 non-English language websites. One is in French and one is in Indonesian. The Indonesian one is very new. So they are doing all the translations. The French one, our colleagues there work within a translation service. If you can speak the other language, they will ask you to approve the piece as well. If not, then that will get translated. We won't help with translations for other republishers, but they do often contact us and say, can we translate your piece? Your second question on anonymity, I'm afraid not. No, you have to write under your own name. Yeah.
I think it's quite obvious that this is, sort of in part so that universities can perhaps wrestle control away from the more classical media in terms of how science is presented, right? Or at least it kind of seems as if, so do you kind of, or does the conversation see itself as the future of science communication in general? I'm curious, so how do you see the development of the organisation?
I don't think it's trying to wrestle anything from anyone. I think it was founded because the editor who founded it, a guy called Andrew Jaspin, he was in Australia, in the Australian space. He basically thought that there were journalists were having to write stories about issues that they didn't have the time to research properly, and he thought that the academic community just has a lot of untapped information, that it wasn't, and the kind of the mesh between journalism and academia wasn't working properly. I don't think this obviously isn't. It's not our job to replace science journalists in the major papers. We would like to try and work with them. We would hope that publishing an article on the conversation, say for example you've got a new piece of research coming out, you would see it as part of your media plan for getting getting press coverage for that piece of research. So it might be that you say, okay, I'm going to write a piece for the conversation where I explain how I did the research and why, but I also want to then point other news outlets to that piece, perhaps just to explain my point of view, but I'll also do interviews alongside it. So it's not a replacing as such, but it's just a way that academics can talk in their own words a bit more about their research. Yeah.
So like how do you ensure that you don't have a political bend, or do you?
You mean as the organisation?
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't ever reject a piece because of a political perspective. We, as any other, as the BBC, we're trying to look for balance. So, Brexit is actually a really interesting case for that, because obviously most of academia is against Brexit. So we did work, try hard to try and find academics who had the opposite point of view as well, and it's been an interesting one for us. But we would never reject a piece on any political grounds. So we would be open to taking any piece from any political persuasion, really, if it was based in rigorous academic research. I mean, that's the thing. You have to write from your own. You have to write from your own area of expertise. If you're someone who studies 16th century literature, we're not going to ask you to write about the Labour Party in modern day Britain. We'll ask you to write about 16th century literature. So it's kind of that perspective. I should perhaps have just said, sorry, we take article ideas from PhD students upwards. So if you're doing an MA or an MSc, we wouldn't accept a pitch, but if you're doing a PhD, we would be happy for you to write about your PhD area. Sorry, yes?
I was actually just going to ask, what academic level do you get most articles from?
It's an interesting question. I don't know off the top of my head that, but I'd say that probably kind of associate professors or lecturers, I'd say we do get lots of professors writing as well, but we also get PhD students. So it's an interesting one, and I perhaps one we should have a figure for. But yeah, we do get a real spectrum of people who write for us, and we're really keen. Professors can offer us a different perspective sometimes than a PhD researcher who is very much doing on the ground research or very, very close to that issue at that moment. An example we always give for the PhD researcher is, I don't remember, a couple of years ago, there was a train line that went down towards Cornwall that was basically wiped away by a flood. And like the week before that, a colleague of mine had been at a university giving a lecture, and she'd met a guy who'd been doing a PhD on this train line. And he'd said, oh, no one's ever going to want a piece about this, my PhD research. And then the next week this happened, and we emailed him immediately and said, could you write a piece about it? And, you know, this is, you know, you're doing your PhD on this one thing, and it suddenly becomes news. And no one knows that you're doing your PhD about this, except perhaps your friends and some colleagues in your university. So this is just a way that you can tell the world that you're doing this, and it's an interesting area, and you have expertise to give on it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Finish things there. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
the interesting talk. Gemma, I'm sure we'll be happy to talk to you over tea if you're interested. We will be coming back to a screening of the next talk, because it's a remote talk, and it's slightly shorter than the talks that we've had up till now. So if we reconvene at 11:25, that would be great. And there's tea served up the back.